Guten Morgen, Berlin. Good morning, Berlin. Wow, it's great to stand here and actually get a reaction back as well. So I would actually hope there were people sitting up front here. That would be very nice. You could have a direct interaction, but this is good as well. It's very cool for... Oh, thank you very much. This is much appreciated. At least one person to directly talk to. Guys, it's a true privilege and a pleasure for me to be here today. Flink Forward in Berlin. Berlin, one of my favorite cities in the world, for many reasons. One very good reason is that I used to date a girl from Berlin for many, many years. So I was here. I spent many great weekends and weeks here. So it's always a city that's been very true to my heart, and I love coming here. Last year, I was here for the first time at Flink Forward. And actually, one of my colleagues, Gijs over there, he wrote yesterday, last year as ING, we were here to learn and to get inspired. This year, we're here as ING with 3 different presentations. That is really cool. I mean, from a bank, who you normally wouldn't expect to be here with these kind of techie presentations, in 1 year from learning about this product, now standing here with 3 different presentations, even 1 keynote. Really, really cool. So I'm very happy to be here. I started my presentation by talking a little bit about ING. And there's actually a few reasons why I want to do that. So one is, we have our really nice ladies from Global Communications, and they tell me I have to show the slides. So Marianne, if you see this later on, get you covered. Actually, there's a few more really good reasons. So one of the reasons is these slides are very much about why we are undertaking this journey. Why are we transforming as a bank? And that is very much in, the reason that we're here is this transformation. Now, a few years ago, if you had an ING guy giving a presentation at some forum, it would be a banker, it would be a gray guy in a gray suit. The gray suit definitely is gone. I mean, you can see all my colleagues over there. There is nobody wearing a gray suit. The gray guys, if my beard were a bit longer, you'd see it. I'm still a little bit gray. But it's a very different kind of audience that these guys present to on these kind of stages. We're talking about technology and no longer about banking. The third reason that I want to show this slide is very much on top of there. We have just been announced the best global bank in the world, which makes me extremely proud, and I think that goes for everybody from ING that's here. It's really a recognition of the journey we're on, and that recognition is partly based on the fact that we're transforming as a bank into something really new. This slide itself, I don't want to stand too much upon it. I think most of you guys know ING, right? Who here has never heard of ING? Wow, nobody. That's cool. We are active in many, many countries, mostly in Europe, but definitely we also have a presence in Asia. So here in Germany, it's ING DiBa. We have ING in Poland, ING Slotsky. We have it in the Netherlands, Belgium, like all the major countries. Something 40-odd countries, and we're growing. So we had a difficult moment after the financial crisis about 10 years ago, where actually before that time we had about 120,000, 130,000 people working for us worldwide. We disinvested our business in the US and Canada. We got rid of the insurance part, and now we're a pure bank again. 40-odd countries and growing. This slide actually is way more interesting. This slide actually tells you why we are here. Since the crisis, we came up with a new mission that really tells what we want to be. We want to be the bank that helps our customers stay a step ahead in life and business. And it just doesn't stop there. It tells you very clearly how we want to do that. We want to do that by actually helping our customers through analytics. We want to do this by helping our customers by offering very new business propositions. We don't want to be a traditional bank as we used to be. This is not my slide. This is the official slide that our CEO shows to the world. Now, we're a bank, and on our first slide, the one slide that tells our strategy, it says analytics. And it doesn't just say analytics, it talks about staying a step ahead in life and business. That really tells you we're talking about predictive analytics, real time, everything we all work on every day. That is really captured in this slide. This is our business statements. And that is the reason, you will find us here and many other conferences. We are building this as part of our mission. This is not just a few IT guys that are doing fancy stuff. This is in the DNA of the bank. And that's a transformation that we've gone through. And that is going to be a big part of what I'm going to talk about today. And I need to have a little drink of water. So I was talking to Stefan yesterday. And I was telling him, my presentation is not too technical. And he said, well, I'm having the least technical presentation ever. I think I need to give you guys an apology. I'm very sorry. If you thought that was non-technical, my presentation is going to be way, way, way less technical than that. There's not a single line of code in the whole presentation. Why are we going through this transformation? Because the world is changing a lot, especially for banks. On the one hand, you have this enormous pressure of the regulators. And that's not just for banks, but we're very much in the front of those regulations. So who here in this audience knows what GDPR is? That's it, like maybe 10, 15% of the audience? That is scary, guys. You should know. This comes to all of us. Everybody, any business that has even a single European customer will be impacted by these regulations. Everybody. It stands for the General Data Protection Regulation. It is a law coming from the EU. It gets in effect May next year. And it tells us all very clearly what we need to do with data. We need to be very much in control of data. We need to treat our customer data with respect. We need to know where it is. We need to be able to delete it if the customers ask us to. We need to show what we do with it. We need to ask for consent when we use it for analytics. Even Alibaba in China, if they have customers from the Netherlands or Germany or anywhere, and they do, they fall under this regulation. The Googles, the Facebooks, the Ubers, all of them, this regulation applies. I would assume that everybody in every company would be working on this. I know we are, very much so. But in banking, there's many more regulations than those. And we've already been in this area for many years, and that's also the reason we always stress the importance of being in control of data. We just don't mess around with data. On the other hand, you see also that the customers, they really want different things from banks. I remember the days when people did their financials, let's say Sunday afternoon. They would go to the computer and they would sit down with all their paper and they would start doing their transactions, they're doing their payments, they were looking at everything. That time has gone. We now take our mobile device, put it probably on this side, and when I want to get some money from my friends because I paid somewhere when we are having beers, I create a payment request, they scan it, and it's done. That's how we do payments. People don't want to spend time on that, not even on the major decisions in their lives. It all has to be like that, directly. So it really has changed. It also has changed through the technologies. Many years ago, there was no way for people to get into this market. There were no fintechs. Why not? Because the technology didn't make it possible for them. These days, there is like a fintech every day. They're coming out and they are competing with us. Our biggest competition is not Deutsche Bank here in Germany or ABN AMRO in the Netherlands. It is Facebook, it is Apple. It's these guys. It's the small fintechs that's come out there because all of a sudden, with all these possibilities, PSD2 making it possible for us to open up to others, they can consume our services, all these little peer-to-peer lending propositions coming out there, it's all driven by software, it's all driven by the new technologies. So we are in a very interesting landscape. Also the whole erasure of borders. Everybody's got a smartphone. How many of the apps you have on your smartphone are actually local to your country? I can tell you probably one, your banking app. And that's very stupid, because everything else is global. There is no Facebook app for Germany or for the Netherlands. It's global. And people expect to be treated in a global way. This is really driving major, major changes in the financial industry. Of course, then the question should be, how do you react to that? Well, for us, this has been the reaction. We are no longer a bank. We're an IT company. Can you imagine? I've worked for ING for 22 years just to find out I work for an IT company. This is a statement from our global CEO. He now goes publicly and says, we are an IT company that just happens to have a banking license. And you would say, you know, of course you've always been an IT company. And yeah, we have. I mean, we've had, I don't know how many data centers in the past. Now we're down to 58, down to 58. We used to have many, many more. We have thousands of applications. We've got, I don't know how many programmers and engineers, maybe like 10,000 plus. But the whole mindset of thinking that you are an IT company first, that has really impacted our organization. And that translates to many things. That really translates to us thinking in a model where we bring business and IT together. Especially when you look at the development that started in the Netherlands. Now, in the past, you would have business and IT. And the business guys, they would do stuff, and they would come to IT and say, make it so. Now they sit together. We've got a whole model where we have tribes, where business and IT sit together. They work together day to day. There is no separation anymore. The whole mindset has shifted. We now go to conferences like this and represent on what we are doing. That would have been impossible. Now, we organize our own conferences where we try to get IT guys to come work for ING. Now, we want to get you guys. Now, in the past, we would be hiring bankers. We would be hiring guys in financial markets that were really good at trades. Now we're hiring IT guys. We're hiring the right people to build this dream. That has changed a lot. And that is the transformation we're in. And one of the reasons, you know, we are here is because this world has also changed. I remember about 5 years ago, people were saying data is the new oil. You remember that? Especially in the time of big data? Data is the new oil. But it actually took us a number of years, maybe 4 or 5 years, to get to this point in time. So this was an article in The Economist, I think in May or June. And it said that 5 companies on this list, well, forget about Tesla because they actually don't make money, but the other 5 together, they made 25 billion euros of profit in a single quarter with data. Gives me a very clear message. Data is becoming really the new oil. It is there. People are making a lot of money from data. And all of us have that same ambition, because that's what we're doing this. And we're not doing streaming analytics and these kinds of things for fun. We have the ambition to make money from it. And we're there. This is happening. And that has a tremendous impact on what we do, what we need from people, how we organize these things, everything. Because what you also saw is a few years ago, the data scientists, they were everything. I remember I was at a conference about 3 years ago, and there was this guy on stage, a data scientist, but he has like his own show on YouTube, and he was telling this whole story. You know, data scientists are cool. You know, data scientists, we are the new sexy. We're now a few years later. I think data engineers have become the new sexy. I know, looking at this audience, it's hard to imagine. But you guys truly are the new sexy, yeah? I mean, take that home when you talk to your boss later on. You are. You know, if after this talk, you know, you go to your boss and tell him, you know, I'm sexy and I know it, you know, I need a raise, you know, you need to keep me, and you become successful, drop me a line. There's no need for flowers or bonbons or wine, just a thank you note is okay. And of course, this doesn't apply to the ING guys. We pay you more than enough. You're already way appreciated, huh? But it's true. You guys are the ones that we are all looking for. Your technology skills, you know, your power to actually translate our ideas to reality, that's driving the new businesses of banks, of everybody. Huh? Like I had on the previous slide, software is eating the world. That's everywhere. And now it's software around data. So, saying all of that, what does that mean for our journey? Well, our journey also started about 5 years ago. And that started pretty much as a very traditional approach towards data. So remember 5 years ago, banks were just like in the last days of the crisis, were not making too much money. At ING, we're doing this whole agile transformation, you know. Governance is boring, architects are legacy thinkers, everything is down to the teams, you know. Everything is revolution. So my role was kind of crap at that time because, you know, I was already an architect and, you know, people thought I went over to the dark side, becoming an architect, legacy thinker, all that kind of stuff. And we wanted to build an architecture that really thought about data and what we want to do with that and about governance on data. But governance, I couldn't even mention the word. You know, if I went to my global CEO and I talked about governance, he'd kick me out of the building. But when I talked about big data, haha, that was the hype of the moment. So we went to our global CEO, we said, our CIO, sorry, we said, we want to build this really cool architecture around big data and streaming data. Go, build it, make it. That led to this architecture. And actually, there isn't even a mention of the word big data on this architecture. It's in there. It's actually called deep data in here because, you know, we just wanted to use another word because I thought it was completely overhyped. But if you see, this is an architecture, literally the architecture we made 5.5 years ago. Top left-hand corner, streaming data. We already knew we had to put that on there. We know this is going to be important. We knew we had to put this as part of our overall architecture. There's one really important other box on there. It's called the catalog. Actually, it stands for governance. We didn't want to mention it at that point in time, but it really is about making sure we have a central place in our entire data architecture that is all about governing our data. Whether that is streaming data, whether that is big data in Hadoop, whether that is a traditional data warehouse or whatever, anything. We need to have a central place to govern our data. This architecture has been around for about 5.5 years. I spent a significant part of my life trying to realize this architecture, build it out, deliver it. It's now up and running, at least the foundational parts of this, in all countries of ING. It's been pretty successful, but we're not there yet. So parts of it is definitely missing. And one of those parts is the whole streaming analytics part. About 2 years ago, within ING, we were doing a major initiative on thinking global. Now, ING traditionally has been a bank that was really organized per country. And that was fine until, say, 2008, 2009, because just like money was coming out of everywhere. You know, like every country was making shitloads of money. I mean, we couldn't even spend the money. That has changed quite a bit. We're doing okay, but we've also seen that it's impossible for us to actually have this complete development of a full stack in every country. Why would we do that if we are actually a bank that has an ambition to be global? We want to reuse a lot of the things that we develop in one country to another country. I'll give you a nice example. A few years ago when the Apple Watch came out, of course we wanted to build an app for the Apple Watch. We built 7 in parallel in 7 different countries. That is a waste of time, a waste of effort, a waste of a lot of money. We shouldn't have to do that. So when we started to think about how we wanted to do this and leverage this global capability that we have, we borrowed a lot from the automotive industry. Now, I don't know if you know anything. Maybe there's somebody here from the automobile industry, I don't know, like Volkswagen or Daimler or anything? Nobody? Okay, now let's say a few years ago, Volkswagen would have wanted to build a new car. And they maybe had the ambition to build a nice family car, reliable, yet a little bit boring. Let's call it the Volkswagen Merkel. And traditionally, what they would have done, they would have started from scratch. They would have a few designers, and they would be configuring the entire car. And everything in that car would be unique to that specific car. These days, it works completely different. There is a set of components, a ground plate, a number of things that go into the car, the engine, the car radio, the AC, everything. It's just a set of components, and they are used across everything that Volkswagen has. An Audi TT has the same underlying platform as a Golf, as a Seat Leon, as many, many, many other cars. On the outside, they all look different, and you can price them different, and they have a different look and feel, but the components are all the same. And of course, that's not just this concept, but it's also how you organize it, and that's the whole network model around it. You have one guy in Audi who's responsible, say, for car radios, and you have one guy in Volkswagen who is responsible for the ground plate, and you have a guy in Seat who is responsible for the air conditioning. And if you are at Audi and you look at the air conditioning that the guy from Seat is responsible for, you don't like it, you can't just build your own. You have to talk to that guy. You have to put in your requirements. You have to accept that you don't own everything that you put in your car. That is a big challenge. If you come from a company that is actually organized per country with complete autonomy and you want to change that, oh boy, that's a big task. So when we started to look at this and thinking how we would do this made a lot of sense. And we were thinking about where to do it, because you can't just target the entire bank at once. I mean, that's just too big. Now, most people would say that's actually very simple. Start at the commodity layer, because it's at the easiest place to actually start standardizing. So think about your core bank systems where you do your saving products or your payment products or your payment engine, these kinds of things. We didn't, for two really good reasons. One is those systems, typically, they last for 10 to 15 years. So there's no incentive to change there. But way more important, nobody comes to ING because we have the best core bank system. I've never had anybody come to me and say, oh, I love your payments engine. People don't care, people don't see it. They shouldn't care, because it's commodity. What they care about is the experience we give them. So what we decided is we really want to focus our effort on standardization around the customer and how we interact with the customer. So when we started, and for the guys from ING, this is the slide of 2 years ago. I really wanted to show the whole story. We started with these 5 teams. Customer and product and agreements, central component. We need to standardize across the board. The way we do authorization, how you can sign for your transaction, these kinds of things, need to standardize. The way we do interaction with our customer, changing from a model where we wait for the customer to come to us, for us to go to that customer, really having notification as our central component in there. Need to standardize that. Context, understanding your customer, the customer 360-degree view across all the countries, because a customer could actually be in more than one country. Typically something we need to standardize. We really wanted to focus on these things that you would notice from a bank, not the back end. So we started with this about 2 years ago, and we started to look at how to do this. Before I actually go into how we did this, I want to show you a little video of the kind of result that we wanted to get out of this. It's a short video. I'll do the voiceover, because actually when they did the voiceover, it kind of have a lot of noise, so I'll do it myself. I think it's pretty interesting. So think about this. There is somebody from ING, a customer, and all of a sudden the ING chatbot starts talking to the customer. Says, hey, I think you're going to travel soon. Is that true? Authorize yourself. So just use your finger, all these kind of things. And then, yeah, indeed, you're right. I am going to travel to Tokyo. So the ING chatbot responds, wow, Tokyo. See the background change, Mount Fuji, the Japanese cherry tree. Would you like me to unblock your card for international transactions? Typically, our cards are blocked for anything outside of the EU zone. So if you want to do that, say yes, approved. Now your card is approved for international transactions. Until what time? Well, 22nd. Of course, the AI behind it is smart enough to understand that's the 22nd of September. Can I do something else for you? Oh, no, thanks. I'm good. And then, a nice way to sign off. No worries. Sayonara. Goodbye. That's the kind of experience we want to give our customers. We know what is going to happen. Stay a step ahead in life and business. We reach out to you, and we give you an interesting way to actually take friction away from you. It's not about selling you, per se, a new product. It's about actually taking away the friction of interacting with a bank. So these are the main concepts that we wanted to have out there. It's about being relevant. It has to be something specifically for me. It's not like a mortgage thing that you send out to everybody. It has to be a relevant proposition to me. It has to be personal. It should be addressing me by name. It should be addressing me through my favorite channel. It should be very much to my situation. It has to be real time. I can't wait for some information to reach me way after the fact. Now, if I'm already in Japan and I'm standing at the ATM and the next day I get an email saying, you didn't open your card. Yeah, duh, I know that. I just didn't get money at my ATM. That's really frustrating. And of course, it has to be actionable. It's useless if we just tell you something is wrong. You have to be able to act on it on the spot. Those are the key concepts. So when we were looking a few years ago on how we wanted to do that, we started out by looking actually at what we already had in place. So we had multiple systems, mostly in the marketing domain. SAS, Unica from IBM, we had some Pega systems, we had Info, they have a product called Epiphany, and we had actually our own little home-boiled streaming solution called Coral. Well, we had kind of like a very basic idea of an architecture in mind, and when you looked at those products, they actually didn't fit. Well, I would say Coral fitted, but it really turned out to be not that easy to build your own streaming solution. If you want to look up Coral, it's still on GitHub. We built it in the open source. We had a few people working on it, and they were very dedicated. But these guys have way more people working. I mean, we couldn't compete. We really struggled with making state management and snapshotting and all these things on the same level. The other solution didn't fit. SAS was an exception. It didn't fit in the way we used it, but there's actually a way to make it fit. But we were in this situation that, nothing really fit very well. What we did is actually we took a step back and we were thinking about how we would like to solve this. And in essence, if you look at a streaming solution, I hope you guys recognize this, it kind of has a similar pattern always. It's always a question of first understanding what it is and then what to do with it. And you can give this many, many different names, but in essence, each time you look at a solution, this is more or less what you see. You've got a lot of events coming in, you need to make sense of them. And once you know what they are, you can actually act upon them. So let's say you have an event coming in from a channel. Maybe you need multiple events to use in combination, and then just, this actually event was somebody clicked on, I don't know, the payments button or whatever. And then from there, you can start using that both for reaching out to that person with an offer, maybe doing some fraud use cases. You have multiple ways to act upon that. We were in the situation that Coral wasn't working very well. We had a team in the Netherlands that was working with Coral, and they actually decided to start looking at Flink. And they were already building really good things with that. And we had a lot of people on the business side that said, we like SAS. That was our situation about a year and a half ago. Yeah, a year ago, I would say. So we actually did a beauty contest. Not per se with people in dresses, because most of the guys here don't look very well in dresses. But it was what we called a controlled experiment. We were doing a number of use cases, and we were pairing off SAS against Flink. That was a very interesting one. We did that over a period of, I think, like 6 weeks, was it? 8 weeks? And we just showed what they could do. Non-functionals, functionals, etc. That was a very interesting one, because we also mixed up the teams. So we had some guys from the Flink team working with SAS. We had some guys from the SAS team working with Flink, just to make sure those teams talked to each other, because both of them had good ideas. End result of all of this was this architecture. So we came to the conclusion that most of what we wanted to do fit very, very well on the Flink product. So we built this architecture that really talked about actually the concepts that we saw before. We have a first component that actually takes all these raw events and makes sense of them. And we call that component raw to relevance. What's in a name? And then we have a second set of components that actually do something with that. And that is a mix of Flink and SAS. SAS actually for one really good reason. We have a lot of people on the business side who just want to have very deterministic trees of decisions. And actually in the platform, your platform, it doesn't exist. I mean, we've talked about it, I think, a year and a half ago. It's not your core competence, it's not your area where you want to be. So we've just put them in parallel. We roll this out globally. That is very, very important. There is not an installation in one country and another one in a second country, etc. This is a global platform. And that global platform has also a global organization around it. So we have the concept of tribes within ING. We kind of like borrowed that from Spotify, and we gave it our own flavor. We have a tribe that delivers these platforms. In that tribe, we have a central core team that actually delivers the platform. And they're responsible for the whole platform, no matter where it runs. If we choose to actually instantiate that platform in Romania or in, I don't know, Australia, that team is still responsible. They deliver it. There are potentially also some satellite teams, especially for maybe countries like Australia, where we have a, what is it at the moment, 8 or 9 hour time difference. It's pretty inconvenient if you have to do first-line support for something that is that far out. So we have satellite teams in Australia, and they would handle the first-line incidents over there. But they're still part of the same overall tribe, with the same overall product owner. We clearly separated the guys who build the applications on top from the guys that deliver the platform. So we have platform teams with satellite teams. We have feature teams that build features on top. And of course, in our situation, it's a mix of Flink guys and SaaS guys, because we have both of them in the platform. This is one of my favorite ones. ETL is dead, long-lived streams. One of your colleagues from Confluent wrote that a few years ago, actually less than a year ago, I'd say. And there is also this whole notion of ETL is just like the same thing as stream processing. Batch is a slower version of real-time. I would say that this is a concept that I would agree with as a future direction, but we're not there yet. I pretty much think that it's not there yet. We still need to wait for this whole technology stack to come out of puberty, because we're getting there. We're maturing very, very fast, I would say, growing up like tremendously. And there is this like youthful exuberance that we can do everything, but we're not there yet. There's still a few things that we need to solve. Actually, when I was like kind of reworking my presentation yesterday, the message came in that you guys are bringing out a new platform. I put it in there immediately because I think this is a major step to growing up. We need a clear definition of what the platform is. We need to have a clear definition of how to manage it, how to load balance it, how to do model management on the stuff we put in there, regression testing, all that stuff. That is what the platform should deliver to us. A year ago when I was there, I loved to see the enthusiasm of the community. It scared me shitless that you give me 1,000,000+1 options to deploy my stuff. It gives too many options, it gives too many freedom to all of us, and engineers like to use and abuse freedom. It is not how you build a mature platform. This is. But this thing that's still missing, metadata management. I've talked to Kostas and the team many, many times about it. For me, being in the banking industry, this is essential. You need to have metadata management around your platform, both for what you do with your streaming platform, but definitely also when you start exposing SQL on what comes out of it. That is data. We need to govern that. That is personal data. You can't just say, yeah, because it's streaming, we don't govern it. It's unacceptable. So we are actually, as ING, together with a few other companies, championing an open metadata platform initiative in the open source as part of the Apache platform. This is based on Apache Atlas. And we will definitely start talking to, well, hopefully the whole community, but for sure also to data artisans on how we can collaborate on this. And I have a little analogy on metadata and how you could actually do that. If you look at pictures, you take a photo with your camera, whatever camera you have, and it captures metadata. Where was that picture taken? What was the shutter time? If you have a DSLR, it will tell you something about maybe the kind of lens you have. It will tell you a lot of things about that picture. And no matter where you bring that picture, that metadata goes with it. And no matter where you look at that picture, you can look at the metadata. And maybe even if you have like a DSLR and you bring your picture to your iPhone doesn't know anything about shutter times, but it can still display that metadata. That's the same kind of analogy we need to have for metadata in this whole complex landscape. Because all of us we have this big heterogeneous landscape of multiple parties, and we need to have a view across all of this. We need it. I mean, this is not just like a nice to have, this is a pure requirement. So what we are actually building is a set of base components that tell you about what is the type model of metadata, what is the exchange model for metadata, what is the set of APIs that you can access it from, but also things like a discovery framework. Let's say somebody decides to write a queryable state. You don't want that person to also go into kind of like a catalog and manually saying this is a customer number, this is a customer birthday, these kinds of things. You want to have that discovered, because that is the only way you can really make governance effective. All of this together will deliver us a very useful set of components, a useful platform to do metadata upon. And in essence, we're building that out in the open source. We're delivering two sets of components. One is called the Apache Atlas metadata repository. It's more or less what is now in the Hadoop space. But on top of that, we are building a metadata highway, a way to actually share metadata across multiple repositories and to access that. And if you look at, Flink over there, it could actually start leveraging what we built in Atlas. You can just use it. I mean, it's open source. It's there for the, for the taking. Or you could build something yourself as long as it adheres to all of these principles. I'm definitely calling out to everybody out here to work with us on that. I think for everybody this should be interesting. But of course, we'll definitely reach out to the guys from Data Artisans, because this could be something that ends up in their platform. I was already told a few times, near the end of the time, so I'll sped it up a little bit at the end of my presentation. Before I leave you, I want to say two things. One is, there is two more presentations from ING here. So there's one presentation tomorrow at 2. Wouter Lichtenberg, he's going to tell you a very interesting story about what he's built as a Flink library called Tink. And there is a second presentation tomorrow at, I think, 3:20, where some of the guys that actually did all this work that I was just talking about, they're going to tell you way more in detail what we did, how we did it, and much more the technology side of things. So I think both of them very interesting. More than welcome to join in. If you want to drop me a line, say thank you for being sexy and these kinds of things, or just to reach out and say, hey, ING is doing cool stuff, I'd like to work for such a cool company, more than welcome. Drop me a line. And with that, thank you very much for being a great audience. I appreciated being here. I enjoyed it. Have a great conference.